Welcome back to another video on NFR Plus, and if you guys are new to this channel, we're dropping new videos every single week, reacting to hot takes, tier lists, a bunch of fun content, so make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to never miss another video. But today's video is going to be interesting, Ant, because we have a bunch of hot takes that are specifically about classic albums, and we're going to be seeing if we agree or disagree with them. So the first one, much love to Kaiser Chief, who sent this in through the YouTube community. He said Future will end his career with more classic projects than Drake, Kendrick Lamar, and J. Cole.
No, that's a bad take. That's a bad take. I think, okay, let's do the count, all right?
Yeah.
Just mathematically, just to see if this even adds up. How many classics do you think Future has?
I think that DS2 is undeniably a classic.
That's a classic.
I think that you could argue for Monster. I think you could argue for Monster, bro. Absolutely.
No, okay.
That was a point in time where you start to see a shift in trap music with like him bringing in the heavy auto crooning. It had a huge impact.
I understand.
That songs like Coding Crazy.
Yes, but is it a classic?
I think it's a classic mixtape. Yeah. So that gives him two of them. That's still not enough. Even if we give it to him, listen. Even if we throw him that bone. You have Drake, who has at least 3 classics. Can we agree?
Yes, Take Care. Nothing was the same. And then after that, if you're reading this, it's too late. That's fine.
Or Views, if you want to.
I know you consider it.
Absolutely.
All right, okay. How about Kendrick Lamar? Because with Kendrick, you have GKMC, you have Pimp A Butterfly, and you have Damn. Those are classics.
So already he can beat Kendrick or Drake. He's already not seeing them there.
By the end of his career.
Okay.
By the end of his career. Then you have J. Cole. For me, For Your Eyes Only, which you disagreed with, you don't think it's a classic album. I think, bro, for giving fucking Monster the classic status, if For Your Eyes Only is not getting it.
It's not about what the better album is. That's not the only thing that matters here.
The impact was just as big on the hip-hop community. You have classic records on there, some of the best that the genre has ever seen. The entire hip-hop community values the album. No, I'm sorry, bro. We're not doing this
I don't know if the impact or the influence was there in For Your Eyes Only. I'm not sure about that.
Bro, regardless, it's regarded as one of the best concept albums that hip-hop's ever seen. It's definitely
not
up
by
there.
Everybody.
Of course. Oh, listen, bro. What are we doing? We're giving Monster classic status and For Your Eyes Only's running away with it.
Anyways, besides that, what are you trying to get at? What's your point?
Friday Night Lights 2014, you choose it. He's definitely above for the moment.
But I think regardless of any of that, like just knowing where Drake, Kendrick, and Cole are at current form compared to Future, I feel like they are in better form than Future. I mean, even looking at We Don't Trust You, some people might say that might turn out to be a classic album, but how many more Future Metro collab projects are you really going to get? And lately, when Future's been on his own, he hasn't turned in the best projects. I feel like Future gives you an assorted box of chocolates when he gives you an album, whereas Drake, Cole, and Kendrick, for the most part, maybe not Drake as a reason, but the other guys, and Drake when he wants to, they'll give you like 72% cacao dark chocolate. They'll give you something focused, cohesive, whereas, again, Future's giving you the assorted box of chocolates. So, ultimately, I feel like Future will not be able to catch up to them. What about you?
I usually fuck with your analogies, but that was a poor one. That was going to be a poor one. I just have to like tell you. I didn't fuck with like the
I don't give a fuck if you like it or not. The people can decide. But so yeah, we're going to disagree?
It's not bad because he says Future will end up in his career. Like, you don't know what happens. Because if, let's say, Future has no classics to his name at this point, or let's say he has one undeniable one and there's nothing else in his catalog, then I say, fine, okay, that's a bad take. But according to you, he has 2, and the rest of the guys have 3. So you don't know what happens in the future. Future might deliver another classic. So while I disagree and I don't think it's going to happen, I think the cards are still out there. Maybe. You never know what happens. All right, let's keep going on with this, okay? Let's go on to C. Daniels. Hope you're doing well today, bro. I answered that like a super chat on a live video. That's pretty funny. You had said that was good. But hey, man, I hope you're having a good day if you are watching this. And this was your take, all right? Then I want to know if you guys agree with this in the comment section. CLB is a classic, and if you disagree, you just want to fit in with everyone else. Okay. The cover is amazing, too. Not sure why it's hated on. Well, maybe there's like fucking 15 pregnant emojis on there. I'm not sure.
It's actually one of the worst covers I've ever seen. We thought it was fake when we saw it.
I thought it was fake, for sure.
We literally thought it was fake.
Listen, man, I love Drake. I love Drake's music. I've been following him for such a long time. I'm a fellow Canadian, but CLB is not it, and it is not a classic album. And in order to be a classic album, it has to be regarded in the community as a classic album. Not only that, it's 2021. Still not there yet. Not enough time has passed. Regardless, what type of... Okay, the album was low-key carried by Way Too Sexy. Could we agree on that? If that's the song that's carrying the success and the popularity of the album, and that's what the album is known for, then no, I don't know if that's like the best way to go about it.
It had more hits, bro. Like Fair Trade was a massive fucking hit. Champagne Poetry, believe it or not,
I'm
is
just saying-
streaming extremely well. So I don't want to say that Way Too Sexy carried the album and its success. We cannot say that. This is a very popular album
I
with
worded this
multiple
wrong.
hit songs.
I'm just saying that the
this-
biggest song on the for a Drake album, that being the biggest and best song off of this album, you go back to, let's say, previous Drake classics, right? You look at, let's say, A Nothing Was the Same. Hold On, We're Going Home. That's the song that everyone knew off of the album that carried it to popularity. You look at something like a Take Care, it was headlines, or it was something like, for example, a Take Care. I'm just saying that
even
I
if
feel
you look at the biggest hits on Views or Scorpion, they're not the best songs in the album. You can't
there's still
expect
quality,
that.
though. You still have Controllers, you still have One Dances. What I'm just trying to say is that the pop attempts off of this album felt forced. A Way Too Sexy should not have been the biggest song off of this album and should not have carried the CLB era. That's just my opinion. That's the way that I had meant it.
I think the
at
real
least for this.
I think the real issue is that a classic album is supposed to define a certain period of time and be extraordinary for what it meant to that period of time, the unique feeling and music you got from it. And this was Drake pandering to the fans and giving them records that they wanted because of what he's given them in the past. For example, a TSU being a copy of like a Houston, Atlanta, Vegas, or a You Only Live Twice, doing a sequel to the motto. It just felt like he was doing too much fan service and didn't actually have a new direction to go into. And what's crazy is that this was like his most hyped up album, or one of his most hyped up albums of his entire career. Because the last studio album before this
was Scorpion.
was 3 years before.
Was with Scorpion.
There was so much build up to this album, and it fell flat. So every time I see people in the comments saying this album's a classic, or Aiden Ross going on stream and saying that it's a classic, there's never any valid points being made for as to why it's a classic.
For sure. I think it's just because people were maybe in the space when it dropped and it was such a big moment, whatever the case may be, but the quality of the music doesn't speak to that. And like you said, when you go back to that moment in time, it wasn't revolutionary for its time, and it didn't have that unique feeling, at least in my opinion and Lou's opinion. But let's keep going on with this. So let's go on to the boy. Hope you're doing well today. I'm going to say that for every single one of you guys because I feel like I'm in a live stream right now. You said the Carter 3 is a classic but has more skips than people want to admit. I agree with this. As of late, I've been agreeing with this.
Oh, thank God.
I agree with this. Going back to the tracklist, I believe we had done a tracklist battle on a live stream at one point, and you and I were going through the consistency of it, and I do think there's a good amount. I think this is one of those classics and one of those like magnum opuses in hip-hop that gets gets the... Hey, for its time, it was revolutionary. People were really fucking with it. It was like a decade-defining album as far as like the decade goes.
Magnum opus means his best work and means that like it's like almost a flawless piece of work, which it's not.
No, it's not a flawless piece of work, but I mean, I'm not completely writing off this album for like 2 skips.
I have like maybe 3 or 4 skips, like looking at songs like
Pussy.
Phone Home, Pussy Monster, Tie My Hands. I think what made this album a classic was the fact that it showed us the power of a mixtape run. Like Wayne had a crazy mixtape run leading up to this, and then you go from stardom to superstardom as soon as this album comes out, sells 1 million first week, wins the Grammy. Like it was just a moment for its time. And you got Wayne giving you classics like A Million, Lollipop that dominated the airwaves for years and years.
Let the Beat build as well. Dr. Carter, you have incredible song concepts on it. Some of Wayne's best ever rap performances. And what's cool is that this album actually leaked before. There's a whole segment where Yachty was talking with Schoolboy Q about this album and how he had it like a couple of months before. And the fact that it still did over 1 mil first week is kind of incredible. So listen, I do agree with you. It has skips. Yeah, the boy, it has skips, but it is a classic album. No debate. But let's keep going on with this. Melt of My Eyes will be a classic.
Thank you to Optic Turtle for that.
Thank you, Optic Turtle. So how do you feel about that? Obviously, that's my album of the year for 2022. We're massive fans of the project, but at the end of the day, do you think it will be regarded as a classic?
It's interesting because I feel like this was Denzel's attempt to make a Pimp A Butterfly type of album where you have him really focusing on black plight. You have Denzel tapping in with a Robert Glasper, who of course did some of the jazz production on Pimp A Butterfly. You have more of a rounded concept throughout the album, but I don't feel like it reached those heights or the heights of that crazy of a concept album, just because there wasn't as much nuance in the lyrics, and I feel like the lyrics aren't as thought-provoking as some of the other albums that are in its class. I do feel like the track list could have been trimmed as well, and to me, it's like...
What would you have trimmed off of this?
I would have taken off Troubles with T-Pain.
I feel like that was maybe a bit of a weaker record off of the album as well. I don't feel like it really fit the vibe of it. But going back to certain songs that were questionable for me, not that I decided in the moment that I didn't like or disliked, like example an X-Wing, for example. I go back to that song and I actually really fuck with it to this day. You know what I'm trying to say? So I also think that to your point about like the thought-provoking lyrics, you do get a lot of that though on songs like John Wayne, The Last, Melt Session #1. You have Walkin'. There's a lot of quality records, Angels as well. I mean, there's really some serious like lyrics on this album.
Don't get me wrong. There's quality lyricism all throughout it, but I'm talking about like shit that's more like thought-provoking and that like makes you have to listen 3-4 times to really understand some of the messaging. You know, that's sort of the way that I view it.
Going back to The Last or a John Wayne or a Melt Session #1, you're gonna want to go back to those lyrics and you're gonna want to understand them over. I feel like we've bumped that album so much that we understand it, but think about how much that album is still in your rotation, at least for me.
For me, it is as well.
Absolutely. I'm going back to that album all the time.
My final point that I want to make is the fact that I feel like every time you're talking about an album of this level, you have to put an asterisk next to it in the sense of it being, if you want to call it that, an underground classic, because a classic by definition has to be something that is very memorable of its kind. And I feel like when a project isn't being heard by the masses or by like too many people, it can't have that general consensus opinion of this is a classic album because it just hasn't reached enough ears.
But technically, the word classic is still in the word underground classic.
But that's it. There's an asterisk next to it. It's like an underground classic. But regardless,
I think it's a classic for the hip hop community.
For the community.
But
is it a classic in the same way that a Get Rich or Die Trying or a Doggy Style or a Carter 3 is a classic?
No, obviously
it's not a classic to me.
I think there's different degrees of classic, right? But I do think it's one of the most memorable albums of the decade. And it's one of the most memorable albums, especially for Denzel Curry's career.
It's an incredible album. Don't get me wrong. I don't know if I could put that classic stamp on it.
No, like you said, it's not next to like the Get Rich or Die Trying and stuff. I don't even want to say that. Absolutely not. But it's definitely one of the best albums of the decade.
Oh, for sure.
I think we semi-agree with you. But let's keep going on with this
next one. Let's go to the next one. You Know Certified Trash by You Know Miles is the only classic rap album that we've gotten for the last 10 years.
I have to agree with you.
Yeah, this is a mildly hot take, but I do think that Herbert might be onto something here because when you listen to this album, You Know Miles is a lyrical samurai all throughout it. The concepts are life-changing. You had #1 songs on this album. You had features from Joe Swanson from Hasbulla that were incredible, bro.
I think, listen, when you go back in a couple of years and you really look at what You Know Miles did on this, you're going to say, you know, he should have gotten his flowers. And I think in this situation, when I look like, let's say at Honor Killed the Samurai, for example, or A Price of Tea in China, that type of writing is kind of like untouchable for me. And I regard that as some of the best writing, especially for the newer age of hip hop. But on this You Know Miles album, I feel like he was able to get there. As far as the production goes, I feel like Dr. Dre probably studies this album. When you have to go back to it, I mean, you look at all the sample flips, you look at all the crazy production. It's that. Get the fuck out of here. That's it.
Shout out to Mr. Herbert who has.
I just thought we'd include that.
Who has Herbert?
The You Know Miles lore within the community is fucked.
I love it, bro. People really rooting
Imagine
for
we
him.
got him on the podcast at one point.
Oh, it'd be hilarious.
That would go viral.
Yeah, You Know Miles to give some takes.
Absolutely.
We should get into contact with You Know Miles.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Next up, the last classic was To Pimp a Butterfly. This came in from Zaid. This is understandable just because, of course, it is an undeniable classic album. And the last few years, it's felt like there's been albums. It's felt like there's been a shortage of albums that have the making of a classic album that really struck you hard on impact. But that being said, I think that this statement is false even just looking at Kendrick's catalog. Like, Damn is a classic that came after To Pimp a Butterfly.
Damn is a classic, absolutely.
You know, so like right there, we could kind of dead it.
Astroworld is a classic.
Yeah.
Daytona is a classic.
Daytona is a classic as well.
For sure. I consider albums from 2016, for example, like A For Your Eyes Only for me is a classic album. The Life of Pablo could be considered a classic.
444 by Jay-Z.
Classic album. Even at that, I believe it dropped in March of 2015. So looking at something like a What a Time to Be Alive, for example, that could be considered a classic. Classic collaboration album. Huge memorable tracks, quality defined the whole year. No, I listen. Our favorite album of all time, at least in my opinion, but no, I definitely think there were classic albums. Let me ask you this:
what do you think was the last classic album then? If we're gonna play that game, if it's not,
what was my answer? I believe we had done this. Right?
We done this a long time ago, so it might have changed now.
Excuse me, man. That's a great question. I still think it's probably Daytona or Astroworld, probably that 2018 period.
Yeah.
No?
I think you can go there, or maybe you can jump over to Igor. Because
That's a classic.
Now we're hopping on to 5 years of Igor.
Yeah, and it's still being regarded as like Tyler's magnum opus,
Yeah.
impactful records. It was fucking genre changing, like definitely for sure.
It might be
You
Igor.
could talk about Igor,
Yeah.
but okay, let's keep going on with this. Let's go on to the next one. This comes to us from Ballin, and you said an album doesn't have to be perfect to be a 10 out of 10 or a classic album.
I agree with half of this.
I believe, okay, so 10 on 10 by definition is a perfect album. There can't be any flaws within it. It has to be a 10 on 10. It's perfect. Now, a classic album, like we were talking about with the Carter 3, for example, that's not a perfect album. So I agree with that standpoint on it.
Absolutely. And I feel like when you're really thinking about it, like
is Astroworld a perfect album?
no, it's not. Like you don't need the album doesn't like there's a difference between masterpiece and perfect album. You know what I mean? Like for example, sometimes it might be Introvert by Little Sims. That's a masterpiece to me. I don't think it's gonna be a classic album just because it didn't really reach people that way. You know what I mean? It didn't have like that impact on the culture, and I feel like that impact is what matters more than any other criteria when we're talking about a classic record.
That's a good take.
But anyways, let's keep on going. Next up, 2001 has several skips apparently, according to Lamar Johnson. This is fucking outrageous. Lamar, I want you to do something. Go to Target or go somewhere where you could buy a CD of 2001
and do yourself a favor.
Slip it in your fucking car, bro, and like just go for a drive, brother.
Do yourself a favor.
Blast it in the speakers.
Okay,
go for a drive.
let's do this for
like,
you.
Even if you want to tell me like bar 1 is a skip,
I still listen to it because it leads into Lightspeed.
I'll still listen to it. But I mean, when you're talking about the actual songs,
The Watcher, no way. Fuck You,
brother.
no way. Still Dre, no way. Big Eagles, no way. Explosive, no way. What's the Difference, no way. Bar 1, like we said, it leads into Lightspeed, no way. Going into Forgot About Dre, no way. The next episode, no way. Let's Get High, no way. Bitch, no way. The Car Bomb, no way. Murder Inc., no way. Education.
This doesn't make sense.
Some LA. Housewife, Act Right, Bang Bang, The Message. Get out of here.
there's no way.
Lamar, man, I love you, but this is an outrageous take. And even at that, you should have included which songs are a skip.
Absolutely.
Has several. So what the fuck does that even mean? Which ones?
That's the most insulting part. Not that it has skips. It has several skips. What are we doing? This is a fucking
But
classic.
Lamar, you have to tell me
masterpiece.
which ones, because I feel like if Lamar would have said I forgot about Dre, or you start naming songs, then you'd probably start to convince himself that there is no skips on it.
Yeah.
What are you gonna say? Like Big Eagles is a skip? What's the Difference is a skip? Act Right is a skip. Lightspeed.
You can't go anywhere.
Even the low-key songs off of this album are low-key considered to be some of the best. So no way, Lamar. I completely disagree with you.
All right, next up.
up.
The Search by NF is a classic album. Came to us from Juan. And listen, I've never heard anyone have this take before, and I think that speaks volumes to its status as an album. It really does. And I saw this take, and I'm like, fuck it, let me rip the first 2 songs. And it told me everything I needed to know, brother. It really told me everything I needed to know. You just have NF pouring out all of his vaguest inner thoughts and insecurities, and I don't know, man. It feels like you're forced to like play therapist for NF like while you're listening to the record and just listen to all of this. And I know it's very helpful for a lot of people. I know a lot of people relate to his lyricism, and there's a lot of NF fans in the community. So much love to you guys, but it's never hit for us. And I feel like when we're talking about hip hop culture, it's never really struck hip hop culture like that, in my opinion.
I mean, listen, it's kind of hard because I'm not as educated off of NF's catalog, if I'm being completely honest with you. So I kind of want to reserve my judgment off of this one, if I'm being honest.
But have you ever heard the take that it's a classic album?
I've never heard the take that it's a classic album, but like I can't fully judge the music if I've only gone through it like, let's say, once, or I've skimmed through a couple of songs off of it. You get what I'm trying to say?
If
Like,
it had the impact of a classic, you would have known. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yes,
it would have been on your
agree with you.
radar.
Listen, maybe if Juan came in and said that it's an incredible album and that, there's no skips on it, then I'd be like, okay, then, that's a completely different debate. I can't answer that because I've never really given it the light of day that it really deserves. But to call it a classic, I think it's not merited because, like Lou said, the community and the impact, like, it has to be celebrated. This is not going next to a Damn, for example. Like, there's no way. And even at that, I've gone through certain songs, for example, like A Change or A Time, When I Grow Up. Like, those are massive songs, but they're not necessarily impactful to me. So I can't speak on this, honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. But all right, let's keep going on with this. Let's go on to DJ SJ. Hope you're doing well today, bro. Thank you so much for sending this one in. And you said, Get Rich or Die Trying is just a really solid album, nothing more. Nothing more, he says. Probably a 7 to 7.5 on 10. No way. There's no way. Like when you have songs on here like a Patiently Waiting, when you have songs on here like a PIMP, you know, you have so many classics off of this. It completely changed the genre. It's one of the best gangster rap albums of all time. There's no way. The production is immaculate. What are we doing?
I was shocked to see that this was one of the most popular takes under the community tab post that we had put up. Like, there is a narrative that's running rampant in the community today that this album is super overrated. And when you really look at it, bro, like, this is peak gangster rap from an authentic storyteller who's giving you these true, bloody, real-life experiences being backed by some of the craziest Dr. Dre production you could ever expect to hear, sort of merging West Coast and East Coast production styles, fucking 50 Cent having that commanding presence. Even if you want to take away the In the Clubs and the fucking Many Men's, bro, even the low-key songs, the You Not Like Me's, the Like My Styles, there's so many bangers. It's endless on this fucking
absolutely
on this project.
There's no way that this is it. So,
absolutely. But yeah, guys, this is gonna wrap up the video for today. Thank you so much to everybody that ended up sending in those takes. Let us know, where do we go right, where do we go wrong, and what is a concept you'd like to see us attack next for another Hot Takes video. Thank you so much for sticking to the end, and we'll see you soon. Peace.